we are developing those connections so that people feel supported and feel that they can support themselves. I would like to show you a video which has got 5 interviews from our asylum members. It was a very difficult process for them to disclose information and to be on camera, but nevertheless we've had very brave individuals that are going to give a testimony of issues that they've experienced both in their country and here in Wales.
Abe Kasadia. I'm 33 years old. I come from Uganda. I came to this country in 2009, November, and I came for assistance from, I ran away from my country because of the torture, the harassment, and the discrimination from my government, my family, my people, because I'm a gay man. We are in a home with the friends, drinking, eating, and we are attacked by government officials, which we believe were government officials, in plain clothes, and we are abandoned. We are blindfolded and put in a sort of a van and taken to a separate, sort of a separate, they call them detention centers in Uganda. There we are very beaten, tortured, very, very badly. The next morning, they dumped us police stations because they had beaten us badly, and they didn't want maybe to know that they were the people who beat us. So they always leave it for the police for the blame. So they were dumped. We are dumped at the police station. I hope I'm going to live as a gay man, a free gay man, because I couldn't do it in Uganda. I wanted to do it in Uganda, but you can't. You have to live undercover. You can't be open. So here in this country, you can be open, you can do what you want. So I'm a happy man at the moment. Yeah.
My name is Megan. I come from Sudan. At about 2.5 years old. I came here because of my sexuality and transgender. And it's impossible to be open as I am now. I always have to be very close, very. Otherwise, if I show I am gonna go to prison, otherwise maybe killed. There's too many ways can happen.
My name is Chocolata, my friends call me Shruti, and I originally came to the UK just for a visit in 2007. I was barely 15, I was quite young. Following a series of events, my mum decided to blame asylum based on domestic violence. When she did so, I didn't really understand how the asylum system worked, and I thought it's all fair, and of course they won't refuse someone like my mum who's been through a lot and all that, and so I came out to my friends as gay, and I also came out as an apostate of Islam, and I didn't consider how would that affect me if I went back to Egypt, because I didn't think it was a possibility. So 3 years later, my mum's claim was refused, and I was quite shocked. I mean, if they wanted to refuse us, why leave us 3 years without anything at all when she has children as young as 12, growing up in a community in the most important time of their lives, basically. And I obviously didn't want to go back because of the reasons that my mum gave, and also because of my sexuality and apostasy. I contacted a solicitor asking about the possibility of claiming asylum in my own right. So I did so, and I've been refused by the Home Office once, and I appealed, and that was refused again. And I'm now looking for a judicial review, and it's quite a few years later. There isn't a specific law against homosexuality in Egypt, but you can use, they do use debauchery laws and Sharia laws to imprison people who are LGBT. Also, it is recognised as a mental illness. You can still go to a mental hospital. Your family can send you there as sick for being gay. Obviously the whole honour-based violence is a whole thing, especially if you're a woman. I mean, that's, from my opinion, is why a lesbian network within Egypt is almost invisible. It's because of honour and shame, and whenever they find out, they do anything to make it silent. This could go to the extent of killing them, but hope it don't get deported. From a place I consider my home. I mean, I've spent quarter of my life here, and it feels like I grew up here. I know people that I consider family who accept me the way I am, when my own family, real family, never have and never will. And I'd like to go to university. I have 5 A-levels and Welsh back, and I can't go to university because I'm an asylum seeker. I'm not allowed any student loans or grants or all that, and I'd really like to be a nanoscientist and do all the technology stuff. But yeah. I've been accepted by all the universities I've applied to and offered places, but I've been accepted as an international student, which means I have to pay 3 times the amount of home fee student, not including accommodation and living expenses. Added to that, I'm not allowed to work to even try and dream to save up for it.
My name is Josiah Mavondo, and I'm from Zimbabwe, from a town called Gweru, and I came here to seek for sanctuary. It was on a Christmas Eve, and it was really nice. I was having a good time with my partner and everything. Then, we had big peace, it was, oh boy, we had so much drink that night. I still remember it. So as we were drinking there, we just, get more romantic. And we just started kissing. Eventually, a mob just started shouting, oh, go Chad, which in my country means gay. So from that point, then they started.
Sorry.
My name is Abe Kasadia. I'm 33 years old. I come from Uganda. I came to this country in 2009, November, and I came for assistance from, I ran away from my country because of the torture, the harassment.
Now we have big peace, because oh boy, we had so much during that night that I still remember it. So as we were drinking there, we just, get more romantic, and we just started kissing. Eventually, a mob just started shouting, "Oh, go Charlie," which in my country means gay. So from there, they just then they started beating us up. So eventually, we just managed to escape. It was really a scare, and we went different ways. Then from there, I was hit by a bottle on my head. Then because it was raining down, so I had to go over a fence. So there was these pipes on the fence. So one of these pipes, because I slid over because of the rain. So one of these pipes just went right down onto my thigh. So I could massive deep cut down there, and a big lump behind my hair, which I never, really, I'm kind of pissed about it. I told my family like long way back that I was gay, and it didn't go down well with my family. And my father ended up marrying a second wife, because I was the elder son. It was a really bad time for my mom. I mean, the family started falling out, and I couldn't bear it because everybody, although they couldn't sell it to me, like my brothers and my sisters, it was all because of my fault. That's why my dad had to marry somebody else, another woman, and I couldn't live with that. Like every time I see my mom, and it's like around the area, even where I lived, people they started like they were always insulting me, like homophobic bullying and everything. Well, as a society in general, Zimbabwe is a really Christian country, and even speaking about our president, wow, he's homophobic. Like he doesn't, oh dear, he calls us like less than dogs and pigs. So it's like if you're caught, while you're even holding hands or in public, or even if they caught you having sex or something like that, they put it under sodomy charges, then you'll be arrested. So there's a $5,000 fine for that, US, because now it's using US dollars, 5 years in jail. So where can you get $5,000? So it's like people there's lots of gays in Zimbabwe, actually, lots, but they live discreetly. If they decide to send me back, well, I guess maybe they'll be just sending me back in a box then. And if they manage to take me away, which I'm sure maybe it's going to be terrible, and it's going to be difficult, because I will fight for it. They want to take me away. I won't give up. No matter how many handcuffs they've got on me, no, I will die with one of them. I just hope just to live a normal life, get a job. I don't want to live on benefits. I never lived on benefits for the whole time of my life. Because sometimes the people from the UK but when asylum seekers come here, they want to live on benefits or something like that. But they don't know that some people like me, for a person, I can really
oh, there's so much hardship which is happening, like the economy is crumbling down and everything. As much as I want to be able to go to work, partner, it's a few years to come. I have a small little boy, you know, running, or girl running around in the house. So yeah, kind of looking for. That's hoping for. If I get my stay, then ching ching. You know, I didn't go. Well.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry that went a little bit funny in the end. But if I could ask you for a round of applause for those people. I think it's, what you've heard on that video speaks for itself. There's no need for me to comment what issues people face in their country. But what I would like to talk about is how do we feel about people that will come from those type of experiences, articulating those issues in a foreign language, and actually being honest about who they are, when in most of their countries there are no such words as LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender. Usually there will be one word for everything, and it's very unlikely that that word will be a positive word. So people will have all sorts of feelings about who they are, how they should be describing themselves. They've heard all their life that they are wrong, that they should be punished, that what they're doing is illegal, and yet we expect them to arrive in our country and disclose who they are when they first arrive, with 50 people waiting behind them in the queue. And then people are afraid about actually disclosing more information later on for fear of how is the UK border agency going to treat me? Are they going to understand me? Is it okay for me to say it, or will I go to prison? Because I don't know what the law is in the UK. I've just arrived. And I think it's even harder to think about the fact that many times people will feel that they want to disclose that information, and yet they don't know what to actually say. In our group, we had Megan, that you've seen here on the interview, saying to us, "I'm a gay man," and dressed as a man to the first meeting, and everyone saying, "You should leave. You should leave our group because you're not a gay man," because everyone was uncomfortable looking at that person that walked through the door. And it was only when Megan said, "Can you help me? I need hormones," that we understood that Megan actually had different needs. Then Megan was transgender and Megan was a woman. But there's no transgender or transsexual in Sudan. There's no such words in their language. And when it comes to Megan, and seeing Megan here today, and the person that she is, and always was, but just needed a couple of times sitting down, explaining, this is what a transsexual person is, this is what transgender means, this is what sexual orientation is. And going back to the basics, and actually give the tools to be able to access a GP, go along to appointments so that Megan has a diagnosis as gender dysphoric, having a referral to an endocrinologist to start hormone therapy, when you know that those things would never have happened back in Sudan. Those are the things that change the journey for someone. It's just giving the time for that person to learn what the system is here in the UK. It's astonishing to think of another situation where another member of our group actually talking about these issues and seeing the word lesbian for the first time, said, I didn't know that that existed. I didn't know that two women can have a relationship. That doesn't happen in my country. Well, I thought it didn't, until I've learned about this, because now I know what my sister is. I know why she cried when my parents and her girlfriend's parents made them marry husbands. I know why they were both crying. I know why my mum always said, it's so nice to see them kissing each other, it's so friendly, but they were actually snogging. Yeah? Now we know that. And now we know that the word that describes, or that person knows that the word that they should have known about was being a lesbian or a gay woman. But there's no such knowledge of that terminology, but there's no such knowledge of what that means, of the issues in certain countries. So I would like to welcome here on stage, sorry, where am I? Emma. Emma Ward from the Equality and Human Rights Commission, who has been researching in some of these issues with the Commission. So without any further ado, I'll leave it over to you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Fed, and thanks very much for inviting the Commission here today. It's great to see so many organisations supporting such an important issue, and Fed's right, we have done some research, not exactly on this particular area, and I'll be briefly talking about that, but I'd like to start by sharing a quote with you. All I want is to be left in peace, without fear of harassment, prejudice or discrimination. No different rules, I don't want allowances made, and at the end of the day, I just want to lead a happy life. And I think probably everybody in this room and everybody else out there would agree that that's not too much to ask. And those are things that we all want for ourselves. And that's a direct quote from some research we did a little over a year ago. And it looked at the experiences of refugees and asylum seekers, of trans people, as well as two other groups which obviously aren't relevant today, but they were people with mental health conditions and gypsies and travellers. And this research was qualitative, so it was interviews with people, in-depth interviews about their experiences of day-to-day life. So that was interviews about work, accessing services, going to the doctors, going to school, education, just being part of a community. And in many ways, although you won't probably be surprised, the findings were bleak. People in those groups experienced harassment and discrimination in all of those areas and more, and in many different ways, from verbal abuse to physical violence to discrimination in the workplace, again, none of which will surprise you. Another quote, you just feel like being you is something wrong. You have no right to be, like you're a lower level than anybody else. That's how I feel. I think it's a very fundamental right, the right to be who you are. And, you know, that theme is echoed in what Fed has said and other people have said today, and also very much so in the films that we've just watched. People shouldn't have to hide parts of their life or identity. People shouldn't have to live in fear of discrimination or violence. You know, we believe that everybody has the right to be treated equally and fairly, with dignity and respect. And again, following on from the films and what Fed has just said, fear was a word that featured very, very strongly in the research. People describe being in situations where they were too frightened to speak up about who they are, too frightened to challenge what was going on, mostly because of the fear of making things worse. And I think that is a very grim and depressing thought. However, it wasn't all bad news. Some refugees and asylum seekers we spoke to reported very positive experiences in Wales, positive experiences with community groups, with churches, and described their communities as being welcoming places to be. So alongside those tough and painful experiences, we had descriptions of people feeling powerless, isolated, lacking in confidence, And people spoke of those things, but they also offered lots of solutions. People had lots of ideas of how things could be better. And one of the things that refugees and asylum seekers in particular spoke about was access to advice, information and advocacy, how important that was to them. And again, our research showed that people were lacking clear and simple information. They didn't know where to turn to for advice, who to approach for help. Lots of people didn't know what their rights were in law. Which I guess brings us back to the importance of today and the support group and the resources that have been developed by the Excellence Centre. So, as I said before, I'm absolutely delighted to be here, and our own research shows just how important these support groups are. So I wish you the very best for the future and good luck with the project.
Thank you, Emma. And I think that from what you just said around from the research point of view, that piece of research in particular highlighted the four groups in the UK that are particularly discriminated or isolated, and asylum seekers is one and transgender people is the other. When you have a transgender asylum seeker, think of how that must be difficult in terms of dealing with the issues and trying to reach out to those individuals. So if those issues are difficult, when you start putting together a couple of different protected characteristics or whatever you want to call them, people are complex, it's difficult to deliver on all the different facets that people might present. So I think that it is also important for us to think about the work that we do here in Wales, which I think in many ways we've got the support of many agencies. We've got a direct line of communication with the government who listens to the issues. I think it's very important for us to think about what is Wales broadcasting to the rest of the world, not just in the UK. And I think that it's very important for us to promote, with the work that we do. Some of you have attended last year the first International LGBT Human Rights Summit. Some people spoke at that event as well. But certainly we're looking at what is that knowledge, what are those lessons that we learn here every day that can influence other countries to change for the better. And we would like to very much renew an invitation to attend the conference. Hopefully this year will be running in October. But I'd like to mention as well, we are working for the first time with a new organisation as well, which is called Kaleidoscope, that was set up with the support of the UK government to influence other countries abroad around LGBT issues. So it will be a very significant development for us in Wales to play a part into world politics when it comes to the needs of LGBT people. Talking about some of the issues that people face still here in the UK, in particular in dealing with their claim for asylum, sometimes it's very difficult for people to disclose information, but also sometimes to access justice when issues arise throughout that process. I will call Mike McGavey from Asylum Justice to talk to you in a second, but I wanted to give you just a snippet of information about something that, for example, we have dealt with, and that was a particularly difficult situation. One of our members experienced 6 months of ongoing harassment in his accommodation, made several reports of homophobic attacks in his accommodation from other people that he was living with, to the extremes of being presented with feces outside his bedroom doorstep, ongoing daily threats, name-calling from other housemates, and these issues were reported to the police, to UKBA, to the solicitors, to the Welsh Refugee Council, to a number of organisations. Ultimately, the responsibility for ensuring that someone is protected is with every single individual. It cannot be one organisation. But nevertheless, the issue here was that in that particular case, the issue wasn't heard. There's something that needs to be acknowledged here, and it is about why the relevant authorities didn't step in. The issue is around the fact that people that are claiming asylum on sexual orientation or gender identity grounds have to prove that they are in fact gay, lesbian, bisexual or transgender to the authorities. So when we come to making a report, a complaint, that someone is experiencing homophobic or transphobic harassment and that complaint is acknowledged, that becomes evidence that that person might actually be lesbian, gay, bisexual or transgender. And sometimes that is difficult when you're trying to prove that that person might be a liar. So I would like to also make sure that we're thinking about what is the information that we need to give to the authorities to investigate and to be more aware of the issues that sometimes people might be experiencing, because those issues people can experience also for just being perceived as gay, lesbian, bisexual and transgender. Nevertheless, that is a homophobic or a transphobic attack, and it should be acknowledged as that and reported and dealt with. So, talking about some other issues, I'll give the floor over to Mike, who has been supporting a lot of our members, but also a lot of asylum seekers throughout his experience. So, over to you, Mike.
Hello. Brevity is the soul of wit, this is what I'm going to say. Because those chairs are quite hard, really. Okay, what I really want to say to you is that gender-based asylum claims are quite complex, really. And they've got their own unique character and challenges. I mean, refugees are recognised individually, not as groups, really. So each case is different, each person's claim is different, each one has to be dealt with individually on its own merits, and time has to be taken, and care has to be taken in preparing the cases. So basically the law as it stands now, it does provide effective protection for people with gender-based asylum claims. The problem is the system, if you like, all the systems, the legal system, the legal aid system, if you will, the way that's administered, the court system even, the asylum process, these things are not often easy for the people with gender-based asylum claims to navigate through. And what a lot of people have done is they've never brought their gender-based claim forward at all. They said something completely different. They said, I'm claiming asylum because of a political reason, actually. And then, only after a reasonably long period of time, they come forward and say, well, actually, yeah, I've got a gender issue. And then that's happened to the court, then they haven't been believed, they have to start all over again, and they're still not. So anyway, look on the bright side. What's happened at Asylum Justice is we formed a very strong, valuable working relationship with the LGBT Excellence Centre. And this began when I met Dave Bowden, who's sat in front now, hi Dave, and Federico, and Ray, and some of my clients are here, I think. Maybe not. A couple. Anyway, and what's happened is the LGBT Excellence Centre has really helped us to give support to the clients with gender issues, to help them. Because I'm a lawyer, you know, and I'm an old-fashioned kind of man, I'm a middle-aged man, and I'm really not equipped to deal with the complexities of these matters. What I need is I need an expert. I need people to help people. I need people to talk to them, to the clients, to bring forward the case, to understand them, to give them support, to give them time, to give them understanding, to make them strong, so that I can prepare their case and hopefully get them through something successful. We have succeeded so far in 3, is it? 3, okay. So we've done 3 so far, but I'm really confident that we're going to succeed in a few more. Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. Well done, everybody. And let's try what you do. Bye.
Thank you, Mike. And similarly to Asylum and Justice, we're now connected with many organisations as well in Wales, and following the launch today we will be having another event in Swansea and another one in Wrexham to work obviously closer with other groups, and we're hoping to develop good relationships. We certainly have heard already that there are other people in Swansea and in Wrexham who have expressed an interest, but also that for the first time feel that there's somewhere that they can go and speak to, or to be able to meet other people. It's great as well that we're talking about this partnership working, and it's very important, as I said earlier on, because it gives us a louder voice. But certainly there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of informing the public sector, in terms of informing other organisations out there, services, and anyone really that will come across people who are LGBT asylum seekers, to understand their needs and how they can best support them. I'm going to call on stage a dear friend, Anna, from the Welsh Local Government Association, who will be talking a little bit about the requirements that the Equality Act is bringing on to the public sector. And certainly I think there's a very important message in terms of what organisations can do to support our work in LGBT asylum seekers.
Very dear friend. Fed's right. He came to ask us at the Welsh Local Government Association if we would come and support the work of the Excellence Centre, and of course we have done ever since you began some years ago, Fed, and we're very happy to do that. I'd like to start really. I am going to talk a bit about the requirements of the Equality Act, and particularly those specific duties that affect the local authorities in Wales and the communities in which it delivers its services to. I'd just like to start off by saying a number of people have talked about the media this morning, and I'm not a big fan of the media in terms of its portrayal. And what I'd just like to mention is that I'm acutely aware of the powerful influence it has in terms of people's perceptions and influencing their perceptions. And in particular, I'll share with you, I've got a 15-year-old daughter. Mike, I think it is, that just spoke, suggested that he was a middle-aged man. My daughter, based on her perception, would possibly say you're a bit more than that. And I don't mind me picking you out on that note. And she's heavily influenced by the media, and she is a 15-year-old hormonal teenager who is constantly challenging in terms of her development. I think media stories around sexual orientation and gender identity can be, and often are, subject to sensationalism or stereotyping in particular. There are often many myths around asylum seekers and refugees, and often public misconceptions about the real-life situations, those which we just watched on that video, DVD, for asylum seekers and refugees in Wales. This is in part fuelled by media and the reporting of these issues, very often from a one-dimensional basis, in headlines that you quite often see in the Daily Mail, such as, you know, this country is sinking, for example, or the use of the word flooding. I think one of the things that Federico wanted to ask us, or wanted us to talk about, is, you know, what are local authorities in Wales doing about this? Well, I think over the last decade or so, the Welsh Local Government Association has worked closely with authorities, in particular dispersal areas such as Cardiff, Newport, Swansea and Wrexham, in partnership with the Wales Strategic Migration Partnership, in conjunction with the UKPA, although I know obviously that's been mentioned a number of times today. And over the past decade or so, those particular local authorities have worked quite tirelessly really in ensuring that quality services are delivered to asylum seekers and refugees across Wales, making sure that their support needs are met and that they are treated fairly and with respect in respect of all their support needs. That's over the past decade or so. The question is, where do we go now? And the new Equality Act that's been introduced back in October 2010 is a key piece of legislation, not just for the UK, but in particular here in Wales. Wales does have the potential to lead the way, in particular the areas that we're talking about today. The general the public sector general duty protects a number of characteristics. Not one is more important than the other. Gender reassignment is a protected characteristic, and so are lesbian, gay, bisexual. Sexual orientation is also a protected characteristic. As I say, not one is more important than the other. Fortunately, here in Wales, we have specific duties which are, some people might say, quite prescriptive. And many of our practitioners across local government in Wales are currently working very hard on engagement, consultation on the development of our new strategic equality plans. Bullying, harassment or abuse on the basis of sexuality is unacceptable behaviour. And the need to address the issue does not lessen if somebody is an asylum seeker or a refugee. Local authorities would expect the same support and assistance to be provided, and their status as asylum seekers would not affect the level of support that should be provided. Local authorities working on their strategic plans are likely to feature an equality objective around issues of hate crime. Homophobic bullying, harassment and hate crimes against asylum seekers and refugees needs to be effectively addressed by all agencies, not just local government, the same as any other victim. There are some particular issues that may make it more difficult for LGBT asylum seekers and refugees to seek advice and support. And Federico spoke to us at length of some of those issues a number of weeks ago. And therefore, more proactive steps will need to be taken to ensure that people are aware that they do not and should not suffer in silence, as we've heard today, but that there is support available to them. And for that reason, we were delighted when Federico asked if we would come and support not just this launch, but the ongoing journey in relation to that. What I'd like to say is, in partnership with the Excellence Centre, in partnership with the Wales Strategic Migration Partnership, in partnership with the many organisations that have spoken here this morning, we have to do this together. We have to get ourselves, or Wales, in a position where LGBT asylum seekers and refugees do feel in a position where they are safe to tell their stories, to actually speak about some of these issues that we've talked about today. It's only by doing that, as we've done with many other protected characteristics over the years, will we actually get this agenda moved forward. On a final note, I'd just like to congratulate Federico and the whole team at the Excellence Centre for the fantastic work that you've done over the last few years. And I'd like to leave you with, I know a couple of people have sort of mentioned quotes, and there's a bit of food for thought, and I know you're all probably waiting for lunch now. And very often at these sorts of events, whilst it's great to see so many people here, you're usually the people who are already converted. It's the people who aren't here are the people that we really need to reach out to in order